All right, 6 o'clock, I'm gonna start the meeting. First thing is the consent agenda. I'll take a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting if there's no questions about them, concerns.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, Sarah's made a motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I can do that now.
And then policy, we have 2 first reads. One's the grants, and the second is conflict of interest. Any questions or concerns on those? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Cool's made the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and then the second read, we got a bunch of them. We already read them once. Anything on those? Any questions on
Nothing
those?
here.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, Cool's made the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and then policies to be removed, we have 2 of them. One's the family medical leave, and the other is a class rank valedictorian. Do we need a motion on that one, Morgan?
I believe you do.
Yes, you do.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to remove those, unless somebody has some concerns.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, Sarah,
Hold on,
oh,
wait a minute.
okay.
Lynn can't hear me.
Thank you, jump in. Can you hear me, Lynn? No. That's on. Lynn, can you hear me? Lynn, can you hear? No. That's just
I'm getting
I can hear something now.
We can hear you now.
Yes.
She does. All set, Gordy?
Hold on, I'll fix it.
Yeah, like the old and stuff. Yeah. You guys could do that.
No.
Old and all that. No, I did. I skipped it. I had occasion. I mean, whatever.
I can hear again, Court.
Okay.
Good?
Yeah, for now.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to remove the family medical leave and the class rank valedictorian. Salutatorian.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, Cool's made the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, do we need to reprioritize anything, Lynn?
Oh, I think we're all set.
Okay, all right. Recognition of visitors. We got some visitors, but I think they're here for the spotlight, right?
Yep.
Okay. And we'll move right to the spotlight then.
Oh, Courtney's not ready. Hold on. Gotta talk slower. More.
Mark, are you able to hear me?
I can
Yes.
now, yeah.
I apologize for not being able to be there in person. My voice is a little shaky. I'm a little under the weather, so I'm going to do my best to be heard. So, Mr. Webb just finished at UVM at the Educator of the Year ceremony, so he'll be a little late coming to the meeting. So I told him that I would introduce his spotlight. So we have a couple of guests there tonight. We have Luke Shippert and Bob Monet from the JROTC program at Enosburg High School. So we'd like to welcome them for the Enosburg Falls High School Spotlight. Thank you both for being there. It looks like Bob Monet is there.
Hey, how's it going tonight? Thanks for inviting us in. This is fantastic. We do a lot of good work here in junior ROTC, and we're happy to show off one of the key things that we did. So about a month ago, we took 41 of our cadets. A Black Hawk helicopter landed right over there on the baseball field and picked up our cadets, and we went for a ride. So we had 5 different flights, about 12 minutes apiece, and cadre were flying. We had a couple of recruiters helping us out as well. I have long ties to the Vermont National Guard, the aviation folks, and they called me out of the blue. One of my captain friends called me and he said, hey, we've got a helicopter. How would you like to go for a ride? I'm like, you mean land and we can look at it, right? He said, no, we'll put him in the helicopter and we'll go for a ride. And we started jumping through our, out of our skin and doing all the right paperwork, and it took a lot of paperwork back and forth, but we finally got all the permissions. And what I want to show you, I have a presentation that I sent to Courtney, and we want to show you a picture telling 1,000 words. We got a couple of videos, and we got some pictures, so I hope you enjoy it. And then I'll let Cyrus, our Battalion Command Sergeant Major, our Battalion Commander, talk and give you his impressions of it as well, because it's really all about the cadets. So please. Okay, this was about a month ago, Thursday, October 19th, and that is before the first group of them took off. They're sitting in the back of the helicopter, all strapped in, and looks like they were enjoying themselves. And I think we'll show you what it looked like and what it landed on. Please, next slide. And that's a video embedded. Next slide, please. And of course, we had to do all the requisite safety briefs and seat checks so they knew how to get that. If anybody's ever ridden in a race car or some kind of rally car, it's got that 5-point harness, comes over your shoulders as well across your belt. And those are the pilots, friends of mine, and they were making sure that the cadets all knew not to fall out and keep themselves buckled in. Yeah. Next, please. And here we go. From outside the helicopter, here's the first lift. That's a video. Please play it, and away go the cadets. You'll notice it takes off like it's in a helicopter. It burns like it's an elevator. It just goes straight up. And then we get dizzy. And it just flies away. So if you kill that video, we'll go to the next video, which is more interesting.
I like
I want Cyrus to talk about on the next video, the student perspective from inside, where it takes off when cadets inside the helicopter. Cyrus, what were your thoughts when this was happening?
I was just really excited. I didn't know how high it was gonna go. It went pretty high, and then we flew over my house, which was pretty cool. So,
Anybody there to wave at you? All right, please play that one. You'll see what they saw. One day we allowed them to actually have their phones. I didn't want them to miss that. I thought that was kind of fun. And then we're like, put them away. And go to the next. Yeah, and this is actually in flight. Pretty good view of what they actually saw. Were you sitting next to the window?
yeah,
That's great.
I was. They flew us over towards the Enosburg Valley, and then we turned around. There were several cadets that this was the first time they've ever flown anything before. So they were really excited.
Beautiful day with the clouds too. Next, please. And then we just took some pictures. Some of the cadets sent me pictures, and I picked some of the best of them, 6 of them, just to show you from outside the door and how the green lights up. It was pretty neat. And there's the baseball field and the high school and all the cadets down there in the lower left on the left-hand side. What the cadets didn't see is right there. I was up in the crew cab, and that's the flight chief sitting right in front of me, and the pilots are up ahead of him, so I get to sit up there. And then I thought that was one of the better pictures on the right that one of the cadets took with the river and the mountain in the background and the contrast between the plowed fields getting ready for the winter and the foliage and the fields themselves. So, and then finally, Cyrus, I'd like you to talk about this one.
Me and our command sergeant major gave each of the Army National Guard people a coin.
Yeah, it's a junior RC.
Yeah, a junior RTC coin, and then they also gave us each one.
Yeah.
That was pretty.
So that was took about 2.5, 3 hours, some time out of the day. Everybody, it was really great that everybody approved that, and the administration was really supportive. And I think that's something that most of the kids, especially the ones who've never flown before, will never forget. So please, if you have any questions, ask Cyrus. But that was just a quick down and dirty on the day that we had there.
That was incredible. Thank you so much for sharing that. Cyrus, I almost didn't recognize you.
It's getting so big.
I hated hearing from Cyrus's perspective what it was like to go up there. Very valuable day.
Great.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, folks.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone. Thank you.
On to Morgan.
All right, financial update was in your packet, and that's really just informational. I was updating you on the tuition bills that we sent out. We have not received confirmation on all of them yet, but we've paid the one from NMV to you, and that's really the bulk of the tuition students that you get. So it does look like we're gonna have more tuition revenue coming in this year than budgeted. Courtney's gonna queue up my presentation on the big screen, and I'm gonna go hop right to the second slide. This is our recap for most of you. Again, we are at our kind of second board meeting where we're talking about the budget. On December 1st, the tax commissioner will announce the proposed yield rate. That's one of the 4 factors that goes into setting your residential tax rate. Your third board meeting will be a couple of weeks after that, and then a few days later, we will get the first look at the long-term weighted average daily membership, which is the number of kids. So the number of kids that your budget is going to support. That, and then the CLA, which drops at the end of the month, are the other 2 factors that impact your local tax rate. You can go ahead to. There are 3 board seats that are up this year. I believe it's Sarah and Richford. Is that correct? And then our 2 new members on Enosburg are both running as well. So those petitions, I believe, are due January 30th or around then. You'll need to get 30 signatures at least from the 2 towns to appear on the ballot. If you have any questions on that, reach out to me directly. But I want to make sure that we have at least 1 person running for each seat. We will be looking at this every chance we get. These are the 3 board goals that were set at the supervisory union level. In the past, we have added some district level objectives, which we certainly can do. And I include this not only to focus the conversation, but also this will be the beginning of the slideshow presentation that we will do for voters, that Mort will do for voters this year. So we'll include that. Enrollment, the left side up through 2023 are actual numbers, and then these are the projections going out. Again, we'll use this in talking with voters. I think we've gone over this in the earlier meetings. Again, this is review as well. Some of the things that we're tracking for this year is same as last year. We're seeing more kids with social emotional needs. This will be the first year that we are operating under the new pupil weights under Act 127. And I can go over that a little later. COVID money runs out next year. We do not know where we are in terms of PCB remediation. The only thing that we're certain is that Richford Elementary came back clean. We should be getting official results for Enosburg Elementary soon. And then the 2 high schools and the tech center will also get studied at some point, but that has not happened yet. Health insurance is going to go up on average 16.4%. This is obviously a scary number. It also seems to be tracking in line with what we've seen the past few years, and I think it will be a great year in the future if we ever see something that's back down to single digits there. And then finally for you, NMV has a large 8th grade class that will be going somewhere to high school next year. You generally see about 2/3 to 3/4 of those kids in Enosburg, and that class is replacing a small senior class. So when we start looking at revenue next month, I think in terms of the local revenue, you guys will be in a good position.
Maury, do you know about how many there is?
For the seniors?
Yeah, no, for the 8th grade class coming in.
I think there's around 80, mid-80s.
84, maybe?
Nice.
So in front of you is a printout of the proposed staffing plan, and for folks who are on Zoom land, I'll send a copy of this PDF out to you. In it is broken down first by location, so by school. You will see in a few spots there are names or FTEs in pink highlighter, and these are calling your attention to the areas where something is changing from one budget year to the next. And I'll walk you through those as well. And you don't need to memorize this. This is really just for your information. We will not be talking about salary numbers or benefit numbers tonight, but you can kind of see the staffing plan as it's being developed, and then we'll bring that back with the other pieces of the budget next month. So in Enosburg Elementary, not really any major changes. They had a full-time art teacher in their budget, and the person who accepted the job is only interested in 4 days a week. That's working out for the schedule, and so the FY25 budget is just catching up with that. More changes at Richford Elementary. A lot of it has to do with positions that had been funded in ESSER that were moving into the local budget. So half of your assistant principal is moving out of the grant into the local budget, as well as the family engagement coordinator. There's also an increase in the art position, kind of the opposite picture of what's going on in Enosburg Elementary. There was a position that was shared for a while, and that was split out, and so that's being rounded up to full-time. And overall, an additional 1.4 paraeducators. At Enosburg High School, the addition of a full-time art teacher will serve both the middle and the high school, and rounding out the French teacher who's currently half-time up to full-time. That again was a position that was shared, in this case with Richford High School. That person left and the schools kind of headed in different directions there. There's a technology assistant who has resigned during this year, and they're proposing not filling that position. We'll reconfigure some of the time between the high school and the elementary school for the people who are remaining, but that would be a net drop of 1 to the staff list. Currently, you've got an interventionist that's paid in part with CFP and paid in part with your local money. And for you, CFP is a federal grant that we receive at the supervisory union. The amount changes from year to year, but we are generally confident that we'll get something. Matt's intention is to fund a second interventionist out of that CFP grant next year. And then movement of what we're calling an FPA advisor. This is somebody that's in the FPA Academy that's paid out of ESSER at the supervisor union level. We've got 4 staff there. This would be moving most of one into the local budget. At Richford High School, there is a part of a position in ESSER for family engagement. That grant leaving, where you're moving that in to your local budget. So rather than 0.25 local and 0.75 ESSER, it'll be 1.0 local. The addition of a paraeducator for a second planning room, I believe for the middle school, and Beth can jump in and correct me on that if she wants to. And then overall, a reduction of about half of a time of teaching staff. And for those of you who've been on this board for a while, you know that Beth is very masterful at working with fractions of people. And so I can, if I have a lot of notes in front of me, I can talk to you about which 10th of a person is gone and which 10th of a person has come. But you know, overall, it's less than a 1.0 drop in the teaching staff. And then finally, at Cold Hollow, there is a split position between a Perkins grant and the general fund that we've had for a while, and we are finally going to move that into the local budget entirely. So that's sort of a speed round there. I'm happy to try to answer any questions now, and obviously we'll be dedicating a lot of your next meeting to...
Do you know what the total FTE is going to be for the increase?
For the increase, I don't off the top of my head. And I will say that that especially the paraeducator numbers may change between this month and next month. And some of the places where you're seeing a loss or a gain, in some cases, those are offset by changes at the supervisory union. We have what are called behavior technicians at the supervisory union, which are placed in the schools. They get a higher level of training and get a higher salary differential for going through that training, but they end up in the special ed budget at the supervisory union. And so we can walk through that.
Any questions?
And I'm going to skip through a lot of these. I'll talk briefly about Act 127 because Ku and I were talking about this earlier, and she was on a very long training on it. And I feel like it's something that we need to keep reinforcing. So the count of kids that we use is what's changed under Act 127, and the weighting is different. So originally, equalized pupils were a way to allow districts more resources for kids who were more costly to educate. When that was set up, there was really no research behind what it costs to educate a high school kid versus an elementary school kid, or a kid in poverty versus a kid not in poverty. What Act 127 did was really dig into some of that data, and so it's reconfigured the weights. It turns out that there are some kids that we learned cost a lot more to educate than others, and so those weights are changing. It has tended to advantage rural districts and high poverty districts, which is us and then NMV as well. And so the concept's the same, but those factors have changed a lot, and so the numbers are going to change a lot. And what it means is that districts like Enosburg and Richford are going to have a lot more capacity, and so they can either spend more money for the same tax rate and try to fund programs that are supporting those kids that are harder to educate, or lower their tax rate, or something in between. We are still going to have to wait for that yield number to come out in early December and the pupil number to come out in mid-December, but you're certainly going into this budget cycle in a much happier place than in some districts. And then this again is the formula to get to that tax rate. So your budget, that first number is what you will bring forward to the voters to approve. The local grant revenue for us is primarily tuition money, primarily from NMV district. And then probably the second biggest piece is grants that come into the tech center. That gets you your education spending, which is the amount of money that you need to get from the education fund if that budget passes. We divide that by your count of kids, and you can see that last year that equalized pupil number was 922. This year, your number is going to be somewhere in the mid-1600s, is my best guess. So that will get you an education spending per pupil, which is then divided by a dollar yield, which is a figure set by the legislature, and that's just a number that they determine that they need in order to raise enough money to send you that $16 million. That dollar yield will likely drop pretty significantly, so it's not like your tax rate will be cut in half for the same budget, but it is still going to work to your advantage. And then we're going to fly through to this chart, which is one that you've seen before. I don't know if I can get a little pen on here. A little laser pointer. Ooh. So this is each of the districts in the state from lowest per pupil spending using that new student count, which is about $8,000 and change, to the highest, which is somewhere up around 16. You will see the county average for Franklin County is here. The statewide average is here, these two black bars. Our two districts are down here at the bottom. This is Enosburg-Richford, that blue bar right there. And then the other red bars are the other districts that are in Franklin County. So you can see, similar to last year, our spending tends to be significantly below the rest of the state. That pupil count certainly didn't change anything, or that new factor that we're using to count pupils didn't change anything. And in fact, what I think it did was it sort of spread out the range that we see in the county. In the past, most of the other districts in the county were below the statewide average, and now we have some that are significantly above it. And then I think that's all I'm planning on showing you tonight. We will do a deep dive into both the cost for the staffing plan and then the other expenses, which, for those of you who've heard me talk, are a pretty small piece of the pie in terms of what you can control, but there will be some suggestions on some changes, and then when we get to your meeting in January, we will really then be able to say, okay, if we move forward with this budget, what is the expected impact on the tax rate?
So, a question for you, Morgan. If you go back to that previous slide that we were just looking at.
This one?
Yes, thank you. So right now, you show us down towards the bottom. Do you have any information now that would help you to project where we might be?
No, this is for the current year, so these figures always lag a year behind. We don't know, because we don't know what other towns are planning on doing with their spending, especially given the changes in the tax rate. And I know you were on this training earlier. We've got, under Act 127, districts that are losing capacity have an opportunity not to take the tax increase all at once. And so we really don't know what that will do in terms of those very high spending districts, if they're gonna bring down their spending at all
Or the
rapidly.
state average might go up or down too because of that, right?
Right, yep.
Okay.
And so we may not see, if you're in those districts, you're probably gonna ease into those program cuts if that's what you're planning on facing.
So Morgan, this is this year's spending, but if rates were in play last year, correct? Or is this
Yeah,
just this year's spending?
exactly. This is what they're spending this year divided by the Act 127 rates.
Anything else? Anything, Morgan, anything else? Is it?
That's all I have for you tonight, and next meeting will be longer, more detailed.
Yes, it will. That brings her into Lynn.
Before I jump into mine, just a point I want to make about that last visual that Morgan shared with you that kind of demonstrates the intention behind the law is to make sure that students across all of Vermont get more equitable opportunities. As we build this budget and finalize the budget, I want us to just remember to keep that in mind, that the intention is to drive opportunities for those who have been historically disadvantaged. And that's how I would describe our school communities. So I'll jump into mine now. Courtney, can you go to the next slide? So in terms of personnel, I have only one for action item, and that is Caroline Luce, half-time French teacher at Enosburg High School, that I would need board action on.
Okay. All right, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Sarah's made a motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The only other one, just to let you know about, Erin Ravage has been hired as the family engagement coordinator, and that is an SU grant funded position. So that'll be approved at tomorrow's SU board meeting, but I'm just letting you know as information. Next slide, Courtney. Are you still able to hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So this is just all informational. Those are our remaining open positions. In that next section, the last section does require board action. You have an employee, Brooke McGraw, who works at Enosburg High School. Brooke recently had a child and has used all of her sick leave. She's requesting that the board allow her to use up to 5 unpaid days if they're needed throughout the school year.
Okay. Any questions about that one or discussion on that one? It's 5 unpaid.
Yeah.
No questions, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Sarah's made a motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Nothing under student except some great pictures from each of our schools. So I have a lot of data this month, and I'm happy to take questions on the data or give you some time to digest the data that I share, and then we can have a conversation or answer questions the next time. So I'll jump into the first part of the monitoring plan is about our literacy goal. So we've set a goal that all students will be reading on grade level by the end of grade 3 in literacy. So here's some data. On the left, this is from our FNESU local comprehensive assessment plan. So all students in K through 8 take the STAR reading assessment. In the fall, they'll take it again at mid-year and again at the end of the year. So when I come back to you after each of those assessment administration windows, you'll be able to see growth over time. So this is our baseline on the left. Those are the results for FNESU as a whole. You can see that it's color coded. So blue is exceeding the standard, green is meeting the standard, yellow is approaching or nearly there, and red is below. So the left is FNESU, the right is the Enosburg-Richford combined data. Next slide, Courtney. Kindergarten has several assessments that they take that are different than the other grade levels. This one is concepts of print, and it's really measuring what students know about text and books and, how words work on a page. So you can see that that's our combined data for all of our kindergartners in the ER district. The next is a phonological awareness assessment. It's called the PASS assessment. And this is a screening tool that really takes phonological awareness and divides it up into some distinct skills. So this first one is word discrimination by grade level. And then we have rhyme recognition and rhyme production. Next. And then it gets more complex as we go in the data. So this goes into syllable blending, syllable segmentation, and syllable deletion. You can see by the time we get to deletion, that's a much more complex task that we wouldn't necessarily expect kindergartners to be mastered, to be at a master level at the beginning. Phonological awareness skills. Could you switch slides, Court?
Lynn, you're muted.
Put that one in. So again, you'll be able to see this fall, and then you'll be able to see the winter and the spring. We'll be looking for growth over time in all of those assessment measures. And then the final most complex skill is the phoneme deletion piece. So phonological awareness is one of the early indicators of later success in literacy. So this is an important assessment that we'll pay attention to. And the hope is that the teachers will use the data from this to be able to help support students in the classroom, the data that they're getting from this. Am I kicking out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to just go on to the next slide, Courtney? Would it be better if I just let you look at the slides and then you can ask questions?
Sure.
Sure. It's hard to.
Sounds good.
Yep.
For this, there's no baseline data, there's no performance levels that I could report, but there will be in the winter administration. So I'm gonna have Courtney give to you, I'll have you do it at the end, Courtney, and people can take it away. And if you have questions, we can talk about it next time. So we do exit surveys at the end of every year. So we have an anonymous online one, and then people have the opportunity to talk with our HR director as well. So Courtney will give you a copy of that to take away tonight, those results. Morgan, do you think you could talk through this since I'm kicking out these next slides?
Sure. So we have some data that we're tracking in terms of teacher experience level. And so in this one, you can see, again, 4 colors for each school. Those are schools across the bottom. The red would be teachers who are in their first year. Yellow would be teachers in their second or third year. Green are teachers in their fourth or fifth year. And blue are teachers 6th or above. So you can kind of see the relative stability of the different schools based on those colors. On that third column, the smallest small box there is Cold Hollow, and you can see that they had basically one teacher that was new to them and everyone else had been there for a long time. Whereas if you look at someplace like Enosburg High School, that biggest box in the middle, their staff is basically split in half at that 3 to 4 year mark. And on that's the same thing, but for 2023. So we're tracking this each year. This will be in your packet to look at and go on to the next one. 22 and then 21. And then the next slide. This is a different look at similar data. So this is the years of experience they had with FNESU when they were leaving. You have seen this in the past. The way that it's different now is that boxes that are in green are people who are actually taking another job within FNESU. So that might be the coaches that we're paying out of ESSER that we pulled out of the schools and brought into central office, or changes from one district to another. The folks who are in orange left Franklin Northeast, but we think that they stayed in teaching, and we're pulling this as best we can from exit survey data and what we know of folks. And then the folks in yellow left teaching entirely, and so either that's career change or retirement. So you'll see the people down at the far right end, the 14 and 15 plus years, they're probably actually retiring teachers, and then the folks who are at year 1 and leaving teaching are probably deciding that the profession isn't for them. And then in your packet you'll have that by year as well, so go through 02, 01, and then teachers leaving in 2000.
I think the only thing that I would like to make, if we go back to that data, Courtney, is that from when we started tracking this data till this year, you're seeing more yellow. We're definitely seeing more people who are choosing to leave the profession. And that wasn't the case unless they were on the far end. So if you go back to our first year in 2020, the people who were leaving the profession were generally the people who were retiring, except in some rare circumstances. And then on the next slide, Courtney is going to share information about, I think I messed that up, that this is exit interviews for the people who have left FNESU. The first data set that I should have talked to you about was the retention data. So in September, we sent out a survey to staff. So if they were new to us, it brought them through a variety of questions, really just trying to unpack what made you decide to come to FNESU, and give us some information about what kind of salary compensation did they leave in order to come here. And then for those who remained in a funding issue, we just wanted them to tell us why they chose to stay. So Courtney will give that to you at the end as well.
Morgan?
And then this one, we've been asked to, I think by the SU board, to look at the information that we had in terms of that early return bonus that we did last year out of ESSER money. So for folks who are new, we offered $1,200 for teachers who returned their contract within a certain amount of time. And what that does is it locks them in early so they're not out on the street looking for jobs, and it also allows your principals to know early on in the year where they might have some holes. And so we looked at a couple of different outfits that had put a price tag on what it costs to onboard and train a new teacher. So just the cost in recruiting, training, not really trying to put a dollar amount on learning loss for kids who now have maybe a less experienced teacher. On the far left side, the NEA, National Teachers Union, has a figure out there of $20,000 that they think that's what it costs. That's sort of on the high side. The US Ed ed.gov on these two slides has kind of a high number and a low number. So they're the second and the fourth column. And so you can see there are other places where we've gotten data. And we don't really know what it is, but we do know it's significant, and it's probably somewhere in that range. And so what the blue bars are looking at are, given the amount of money that we spent on that early return bonus, how many teachers would we have needed to retain in order to come out ahead financially? So at $20,000 for onboarding a teacher, we don't need really to keep that many in order to make it worthwhile, and then it kind of goes up as you get farther along to the right. And I cannot see any of those numbers, but those will be in your packet, so you can see there's a little white number to tell you how many you would have needed to retain. And that's important as we head into budget planning season now and try to decide if we've got the interest and the capacity to do that again.
The next part of the report is really around the student-centered learning shifts. This is connected to our portion of a learner. So I'm not going to read all of this to you, but I'm giving it to you by way of example so you can see the type of professional learning that we're doing with our educators and how we're connecting it to the Universal Design for Learning, which we've talked about in the past, which is really about being really strategic about making sure that we plan for the learner variability in our classroom and that we're making sure everyone has access to the instruction and the learning. So we have contracted with Katie Novak, who's an expert in UDL, and she's using our Portrait of a Learner to kind of couch this professional learning to meet both those goals around UDL and our shifts towards our Portrait of a Learner. So you can take a look at this in your packet. We have her several times throughout the year. We have one coming up on Monday. I'm excited to see how that one goes. Can you skip ahead 2 slides, Courtney? I've given you an example. So if you click on the photo when you receive this from me, if you click on that photo, you'll be able to go right to the link and you can see an example of the professional learning that we did with Katie last month. Next, I just wanted to give you a heads up. I had communicated that Richford Elementary School had been identified by the AOE as in need of what's called comprehensive supports. We learned last week that there was a calculation error, or there was really an error in the formula used to identify Vermont schools in need of comprehensive supports. So Richford Elementary was incorrectly identified. We had two schools and they were both incorrectly identified. So the AOE has since sent out an updated press release related to that, and they have corrected the list online. So I wanted to make sure you all had that from me. And then the last piece, this kind of goes back to the recruitment retention part of our strategic plan. So one of the strategies that we had identified in our strategic plan a couple of years ago as we were developing it is the potential for a teacher and staff childcare center as both a recruitment and a retention measure. We know that it's very challenging to find childcare spaces in our area, and we also know that educators have to pay for their spot year round, whether or not their children go to childcare in the summer or not. So I'm actually going to turn this part over to Morgan because I think he's got a little more information than I do at this point. We've got a couple of options that have just been thrown our way, and the reason I'm talking to you as the ER board is because the FNESU board is not allowed to own property. And there are some properties that have come for sale right near the school that could be potential for this childcare center that we would ask you to consider whether or not this board would be interested in purchasing property and then leasing it to the supervisory.
So there are, as Lynn mentioned, there are a series of properties that within the last week have come to our attention that they are potentials for sale. So to orient you, this is the high school building here. We're sitting in the library right about here. Dickinson Avenue is here, the now front of the school, and then this is School Street and Main Street. Over here is the building for the Enosburg House of Pizza. That building butts right up against the school property, so we have a green space here. And it's a reasonably sized parcel with a good amount of parking. So that would be a potential consideration for a childcare facility. Some that we just learned today are up for sale as well. If you go out the back of the high school, there are two plots here and here. This building on the corner is the little historic log cabin that's right off the park. The next two lots are up for sale, as is this one that's across, almost across from the elementary school playground, and it backs right into the Cold Hollow lot. So, that came up today. No one's really looked at it other than walking by to see if either of those would have enough space or if they would be useful. As Lynn had mentioned, supervisory union's not allowed to own buildings, but they could rent space either from a private landowner or from another district. In order for you to purchase the land, you would need to get voter approval. We can talk about doing that in March if this board is so interested in doing that. If not, we would probably approach folks that we think might be interested in buying it and owning it and renting it back.
I think it's a really important program, but we're already going to ask the voters for money for the Cold Hollow, right, for this year? A good chunk of money?
I don't know that we're going to be bond vote ready by March.
Okay. That'd be my only concern is, ask them twice for.
I also have a clarifying question. Would this just be like a childcare facility specifically only for educators, or would it be for the area?
It would be for the staff.
Okay.
We've identified in some of the surveys that would be a pretty significant benefit in terms of recruiting folks. Obviously, the benefit to the community is that there aren't enough spaces anywhere.
Right.
So
I guess that's where I'm coming from.
We
from
do
somebody
absorb it.
who's like like in the community, like I was driving to Fairfax every day for daycare, so
Yeah.
just like thinking, I mean, I think it's a huge benefit, but just coming from like a parent point of view and seeing that, it's great that that could be offered, but really still, you know, it would be nice to see if there was just more availability for everybody in the area that's working.
I think one of the theories is if more of our staff have their children in the child care center, we set up this school year one child care program, that they would open up spaces in the other child care centers for other people to be able to access.
Morgan, is the idea that it would be free for staff, or they would pay, they would just get first crack at the spots?
They would pay, I believe we would structure it to cover our costs, so it's not something that we would really be looking to create profit off of. It would probably be relatively affordable compared to other options, just because we would only be running it 176, 186 days a year.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And would it be staffed by like school members? Like would we be doing all the hiring? Or
We
is
would
it-
do the hiring,
Okay.
and I think we would attempt to have as much of a tie-in as possible to the education program at Cold Hollow, so we could also function as sort of a laboratory for those kids.
And so it would be staffed and run by the SU?
By school employees, yeah, we would have to figure out whether that's something that we do through the SU, or if it would make more sense to tie it somehow to Cold Hollow.
The tech center, like similar to how the tech center runs in St. Albans, correct? There's like a human services program where the kids can do, okay.
And thoughts on what the cost would be? I know that's jumping ahead, but any projections?
So we could discuss that, I believe, in executive session. I have a little bit of information, but I don't want to put anything out publicly that'll put you guys in a disadvantage, because if you do decide to move forward, we're going to be negotiating with one of these sellers.
Gotcha.
So,
Yeah,
but I'm
that
happy to
makes
do
sense.
that at the end of the meeting in executive,
Okay,
or have offline conversations.
yeah.
I'd just do the executive afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll discuss it. Anything else, Lynn?
No, that's all I had. Does anybody have any questions for me?
No, guess not. Okay. Move on to the principal's reports. Kelly?
Everything is informational.
Okay. Beth?
It's all information, but I have a couple of things to add. I started to write under academic proficiency about Representative Lisa Hango, and it was a tough month, and I only wrote that part, and I never wrote any more. So Lisa Hango visited our communications class, Liz Erickson's communications class, to explain about the Vermont legislators and how laws were passed. And she even fielded some questions about her voting record, and it was a very educational experience. She spent over an hour and a half with our students. I also wanted to let you know that the Costa Rica trip is at capacity, and we have about half and half from Richford and Enosburg. And finally, I just wanted to do a shout out, a celebration to the culture of Richford Union High School. We have had some challenges in the last month. Staffing has been challenging, and people just stepped up without being asked. People would show up to do lunch duty. People would come for birthday. They would go out to do bus duty. They were all extremely helpful, and it's just a great place to work and learn. And I want to just celebrate the people I work with because they're truly amazing. And that's what I have.
Thank you. Jen?
I just want to add to what I have, to piggyback onto what Lynn was talking about and the data she shared. We recently have done the STAR again, and kids during student-led conferences are showing how they did the growth that they've made according to STAR in literacy and math, so it's kind of exciting to go through that.
Matt?
Nothing to add to the report, though I was just at the Vermont Teacher of the Year recognition at UVM, which Lynn probably told you. And it was really cool. I had never been before, which doesn't speak that badly to me in my teaching career, I hope. But it was cool to see all the teachers being recognized. And so it's Sophie, our foods teacher here, and her program is pretty awesome.
Nate?
Last week was our student-led conferences. I don't have the full numbers yet, but it's mandatory for all of our first-year program students, so I believe we're gonna have 100% participation. And the only other thing I don't have in here, we have, coming up in January, we've partnered with North Country Credit Union, and we'll be doing a financial reality fair for our seniors, and then partnering with them going forward. But the idea is to make sure that they're comfortable going in and starting a checking account, savings account, understanding credit, understanding loans, and we'll be doing workshops throughout the rest of the year for those students to go in and get questions answered on a small group or one-on-one basis. So we're really happy for that connection.
Nice. Anything else, anybody? Next meeting is December 13th at Richford Elementary. I don't think there's any other future agenda items. Okay, and then the only other thing is I'm gonna go into executive, so I'm gonna get everybody out of here. Lynn, do you have anything else?
No, I'll stay for executive.
Please do. Thank you.
Thank you.
We need a motion to go in class.
Yes, I need a motion to go into executive.
I'll make the motion.
Sarah's made the motion. All in favor?
I saw your message, by the way.
I have it, yeah. I have it, basically, but
Okay.
I was just.
So you're out of executive?
Yeah, that sounds good about that too.
Yeah, just drop yours off.
Yeah, I mean, I should be able to get
Sign,
some.
you'll sign, I'll sign it.
And they have to be registered as voters.
Yeah, all my kids.
I'll
There's
try
10
it
right
all
there.
out.
There's 10 right there.
How are you feeling about?
Okay, anything else?
That's it.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to.
I'll make the motion.
All right, Sarah's made the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.